Hello, Igniters. It's Michelle Wilson here with Ignite Your Essence TV. And we are having a very special show today. I'm actually streaming live from Cabo San Lucas. And our topic today is all about wellness travel. And we have a very special guest, Michelle Quevedo, who's actually the host on Wednesday. And she's also a mindset wellness trainer and coach. So let's learn a little bit more about Michelle.
The mind, body, and spirit integration is a way of understanding ourselves as a whole person. Michelle Quevedo is co founder and host of Ignite Your Essence TV talk show and CEO of Inner World Inc. She is a speaker, mindset, and wellness trainer, a businesswoman, and a lineage holding healer of an ancient healing modality who holds degrees and certification in business, health and wellness, and meditation and coaching, with over 25 years of experience. As a lineage holder of an ancient healing modality, her approach towards health and wellness for herself and her clients has often been referred to as life changing. Yet, she maintains that none of this could be accomplished with the collective knowledge from her teachers and contemporaries. Michelle Quevedo has worked with people from all walks of life, from the stay at home moms to Olympic and professional athletes, CEOs and corporate heads, physicians, retirees, and facilitators of company wellness programs. Above all, she is an explorer and a student of life who has traveled to places near and far, from small town USA to Katmandu and the Serengeti, in all pursuit of knowledge and discovery. From trekking through the Himalayas to journeys throughout India to the heights of Mount Kilimanjaro, Michelle has studied, observed, and practiced meditation, healthcare, and forms of energy movement. She has searched out experts of the most effective wellness methods throughout the world and has integrated this knowledge into her practice, wellness strategies, and private mentoring sessions. Michelle Quevedo is also renowned for connecting her clients with a network of top healthcare and wellness professionals around the world, along with introducing them to existing treatments and methods to fit their needs. Michelle holds degrees and certification in business and health theology, along with other training modalities. And now, a guest on Ignite Your Essence TV show, Michelle Quevedo. Welcome.
Welcome,
Hi.
Michelle. Hey, I'm so excited that we are here together, Michelle. You have an amazing story, an amazing background, amazing journey, especially when it comes to health and wellness. And I'm just looking forward to diving in. I mean, this is an amazing topic that we're going to be talking about. And so, from your introduction, you've been all over the world and you studied with the masters. So I just want to get a little glimpse of your journey. Like, how did you get started on this mindset, this health, and this wellness journey?
Out of necessity. Uh, a lot of times when people go on a journey that I have been on, usually it starts with your own needs. For me, it was understanding. I had a very interesting childhood. And from there, I've always been headed towards some type of health and wellness. Prior to that, I have a background of a family full of physicians. My mother even went to medical school as well. And so it seems that health was always a focus, but wellness was a little different. And wellness was also to help myself get well interiorly. I found that there was a connection between me not feeling well and how that was in direct connection to how I was viewing things, what my mindset was about. And from there, I found myself into a practice. It just boomed and treating muscular and skeletal injuries, working in a large clinic, a lot of patients going through and treating them. Through that development, then became the athletes, first collegiate, professional, Olympiad, and ultra athletes. And then people who were really focused on living their best lives and understanding that their health and wellness was important. From that point, then came the mindset training. I was already pursuing mindset training for myself. I was very interested in meditation and other modalities. And so I had started traveling the world by then. And I started to get into that understanding of how important mindset training is to give to my clients and also in the clinics I was working with the patients. And it evolved from there.
Wow, that's amazing. And you made a distinction between health and well-being and then the
Yes.
mindset. Can you go a little bit deeper? Like, what is those distinctions between the health and well-being, and then also through mindset, and then how they all interact with each other?
You know, it's really interesting that you brought that up because I feel that that's a struggle for everyone. In reality, health and well being should be one and the same. But because they're so separate, we have to address that with people. A lot of times people say if they wake up in the morning and they feel okay, they don't have a cough, maybe they're not aching that day, they feel they're healthy. And yet, as their day progresses, as challenges happen, if your immune system gets jolted because that jolt of adrenaline, say something happens, even if you're driving in traffic and somebody veers in front of you and you get upset, and that kind of sometimes people allow those things to affect their entire day. And that really attracts more of the same. It's just like looking in a refrigerator and you're expecting the milk. Of course, I drink now almond milk. So you expect the almond milk to be right there on the shelf. And say, for instance, you can't see it. And you ask your loved ones, hey, have you seen the almond milk? And they'll be like, yeah, it's right there. And you're like, where? Where? Well, it's because maybe there's a different brand of almond milk in that refrigerator. So a lot of times, if you're not knowing what the almond milk looks like, you're not going to find it. And that's what you're going to find. And so you're going to tumble in thinking that you're coming from loss. When you feel like you're coming from loss, it affects your well being. And when your well being is jolted, it will essentially affect your health. So, wellness is an interior journey, and then your health is the result. So, it's one and the same, but because we're incongruent, that's a lot of times that we talk about health and well being in a separate way.
Wow. And so tell me a little bit more about your journey when you travel, because you said you were seeking that well-beingness.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
did you have a challenge with your health, or was just more that you wanted to be more connected with nature? And because you were seeking out, all the masters when it came
Yes.
to health and well-being, but were you going through a challenge at the time when you started seeking this, or was it because of your clients that you were working with over the years?
Well, I truly believe that I was always trying to develop myself. I'm a curious being from the start. Since I was a child, I was always asking questions. And I learned early on, because I wasn't born with the internet, that I needed to constantly find the sources of information. And so, although when my journey started, I was not unwell myself, I feel that interiorly there was a lot of wellness challenges that I had because I wasn't sure how to deal with the chaos that was in my life at the time. But I knew that there were answers out there and I pursued it. But as you said, on the deeper level, absolutely. It was because the clients, I really wanted to help them. And when I was working in clinics, I really wanted to help people because we all understand that mindset really does affect your well being. However, there's not always a connection as to how that is. For example, when people talk about meditation, they think that you're just going to empty your mind, maybe hold a little, this is what you call a mudra, right? When you hold your finger positions and then you meditate. But that's not necessarily true. There's different forms of meditation because we are in different states of mind. And understanding the nature of one's mind, as well as the neuroscience, I found was so important. And as I was pursuing this and understanding and reading the research, meeting with the experts, meeting with the gurus, I learned that this was so important that I wanted to bring it back to my clients. And this is how we elevated that healing. A lot of times, physicians and healthcare practitioners would say, how could you get this person to do XYZ? I've been trying to tell them to do this and they wouldn't do it. Well, that's because of the understanding of the knowledge that I learned from all the experts. You know, Michelle, I feel it's very important that anyone who sits in the position of leadership, and if you're helping with somebody's healing, obviously that's a leadership position. If you are sharing with people and teaching them, I feel that it is an obligation for all of us to be able to thread that knowledge back to its sources as best we can. We hear about standing on the shoulders of giants, and that's important. But if we want to keep this message and this understanding and this all around technology of learning how to be well in your life, then I feel it's important, it's imperative that you tell people where you got these sources so that they connect to that, so that if they get into trouble and they don't remember where you have said specifically, they will at least think about where you got that information from. So hopefully their journey will take them there, because I'm all about helping people with their own wellness journeys, with their own mindset journeys, with their own healing journeys. And that looks different for everyone. So that's why it's so important that we thread back and keep that information pure so they know where I got it and also what I've learned. And if I can, share the knowledge that I have myself.
Can you share a little bit more of the knowledge of the lineage, ancient healing, that modality? Can you share with us how you, I won't say obtain it, but how did you become that ancient healer, and how do you use it in your practice to help your clients?
I did not set out to do that. So it's an old Asian technique that utilizes all the acupuncture points. However, before the evolution of the needle came this technique. So although I do follow the similar, actually the identical point scale, if not a few more points, I also address the other wellness aspects. A lot of times people have heard mind, body, and spirit, and they think of Eastern medicine, but in reality, it's a holistic thing. It's the aspect of it. You don't go, oh, now I'm going to address my mind. Now I'm going to address my body. Now I'm going to address my spirit. In this type of understanding, it's all in one. Now, how I came about it, I had been working in a political consulting firm and was not living a healthy lifestyle, in the respect that I probably spent more time in my office at the firm than I did anywhere else. Not really healthy, eating a lot of takeout food. The nature of the business was not something that I had pursued. And it was definitely turning me into somebody that I didn't like. And so I found my way taking a trip. I said, I have to take a trip. And so I remember telling my bosses that I'd like to go on a few weeks trip. And they're like, you can't do that. And I said, look, I have to do this. And it's something I need to get away. And they go, well, make sure somebody fills in for you. And I said, okay. So I took a trip. I visited some family in England and decided not to go back. Hired a car, traveled across the continent, or actually took a ferry over to Europe, and then traveled through there, started in Zeebrugge in Belgium, and then traveled through to Paris, to Reims. And then from there, I went across and drove up the Mosel in Germany. That's a beautiful wine region of the southern Germany. And it was through there I stayed in these little pensions, or like bed and breakfast. And I stayed in this beautiful place. And the interesting thing, I'm not sure if this is how it is today, but in these little villages, they have these restaurants and they only have one seating. It's not like you're like, hey, can I have a table? They'll be like, yeah, when these people are done, you can have their table. No, not so. Only one seating. So the couple that I was at this pension I was staying, they knew I ate a lot, because remember, they fed me breakfast. And they said, Michelle, you better go down. You better go down and for dinner, because it's almost dinner time. I'm like, oh my goodness, food was important to me. So I rushed down to one of the two restaurants in this little village. And I said, is there any room? And they said, yes. And, they put me on the table, a long table with a bunch of individuals. And I'm so thankful. My German wasn't that great. And so they spoke in English. They're very educated people, as they so happen to be, were different physicians and health practitioners from different healing modalities from the larger cities in Germany. And they were talking about holistic healing and such. And I had mostly been exposed at that time to allopathic, or what we call Western medicine, and a little bit of Chinese medicine. So what I found was so fascinating what they had to say. And one of them said, Michelle, when you go back to the States, you ought to check this out. Long story short, I found my way back to the States, did not go back to the job. I said, nope, because through those travels, I realized that I needed to find myself in a way, not in the cliche way, but in the healthy way. I found that literally I had more energy. My attitude was better. And guess what? I wasn't constantly taking cough medicine all the time because of being stressed out. And so through that pursuit, I found my way into the commons of one of the universities that I was attending. And there was a teacher in the healing modality that these professors are brought over, several of them from the medical school, to study the effects of their techniques. One of them ended up eventually being my master, and everything evolved from there. But I want to point out that I did have some health and physiology training, which is why it worked so well when I was working with not only alternative, as what we call alternative or complementary healing techniques, or with doctors in those fields, but it also works for the allopathic, the Western medicine. So I'm kind of a bridge. I can speak very well, and I understand the importance of both. And so from there, I was able to build a very successful large practice, and working with people from both sides of the spectrum, because I was able to understand that there's a benefit in all. If we want to get well, let's use all the technology. And that's sort of the evolution. I'm sure it could be a longer story, but I hope that that answered your question.
Oh, thank you so much. I just love your journey and how just found that you can, all health modalities can work in unison
Yes.
with each other, right? I think
Yes.
that's so beautiful. Now, going back to your practice,
Mhm.
you seem to work with, Olympians and stay-at-home moms and CEOs, but do they come to you when their health is actually at a challenge where
Yes.
so do you recommend, how do you live a well-being life if you want to, because I think when you're in a health challenge, is it more difficult to get through, finding yourself to become healthy again as opposed to being more proactive? I mean, do you work with folks who want to be more proactive in their health? I guess is what I'm trying to say, as opposed to when they're coming to you when they're in a crisis. Can you kind of
Yes.
speak on that? Okay, great.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yes, actually, I do. People who are pursuing wellness on a preventative standpoint, they are reaching out to me more. That graduated with clients that I had released, where we're like, hey, we met all the goals. Come and see me when you need me. And a lot of them wanted to continue with me because they really enjoyed the mindset training. I have a very long process that I take people through in the journey. And it was from there that people had heard about that, and it was all word of mouth. And you're right, Michelle. Most people who come to see me, there is some type of health crisis. And even the Olympians, even the professional athletes, even the most successful individuals that society deems as successful, all have something in common when they're unwell. And that is that they are astounded how much their self-esteem is affected when their body feels ill, when they're in pain,
Mm.
when they're not feeling 100%. And it's from there that I have to work with them. I need them to understand that their physical prowess is not definitive of who they are. And once we get to that point where they realize that they're really okay, we just need to address and create balance in their life, then they fall away. That takes a huge amount of stress that people didn't realize. Also, times people become very judgmental of themselves when they see me. They come here and they say, yeah, I need to quit smoking, or I need to lose weight, or I needed this, I need to fill in the blank, whether it's sleep, whether it's work too hard, whether it's not taking care of themselves. And I need them to be in the state of kindness for their bodies. If you don't learn how to deal with your body as a being that wants to be on your team to help you get through life, then you truly will not be well. A lot of times people are trained mind over matter, but what they don't understand, they take it
Mhm.
so literally. Mind over matter does not mean that your mind gets to control everything. Mind over matter really means that your mind is not in charge, but your mind
Mm.
can facilitate what's going on with your matter. Your mind is actually a mediator. And it's not in charge, but it is a mediator with your body. That means that you need to listen. Who do you need to listen to? You need to listen to your body. I have something that I often tell people. I say, a lot of times people, they treat their body like a slave and they're the master.
Mm.
And they know they need sleep. They're like, yes, but later. Or they know they need to eat food, but yes, but later. Or whatever it is that the body's trying to tell them, please, please, I'm in distress. I need something. But the mind says, no, no, no. But your body always wants to meet you. Your body always wants to be there. So it says, okay, okay, I'll wait, I'll wait. But when ends up happening, if you take that body to that degree, then eventually the slaves will revolt and they will win. And that's how things develop. That's how autoimmunes happen. That's how all of the underlying conditions start to creep up. Isn't that what we learned about this pandemic with COVID-19 and all of the variants of it? The reason why the symptoms are different for everyone else and how it affects them is because of pre-existing conditions. A lot of people don't even realize they seem healthy to themselves and they didn't even realize they had these pre-existing conditions. Why? Because we're not trained to check in and to build a relationship with our body. We're not slave masters. This is a relationship. It's like a family.
I love
Hopefully a
that. It's
functional one.
yeah. And it's unfortunate as a society, we talk about, especially as entrepreneurs and leaders and CEOs, it's all about the grind, right? Work more,
Yes.
work harder to get it done.
And
And we
I've
don't
been there,
listen to our
yeah.
bodies. Yeah, I've been there
Right.
too. I've hit burnout a couple of times. And so that's why one of my, I love is travel and wellness. This is to take a break to leave the environment for a minute or two. So can you speak on that? Like, do you recommend that to your clients? And let's say if they can't like take an exotic trip like Cabo, but what are some of the things that you coach and train your clients through so they're able to get in alignment with their mindset and with their wellness and their health so that they can change that or turn it around? And I know you talked about 5 stages of transformation, and I believe that this has to do with the mindset,
In
right?
my wellness,
Transforming your
yeah,
mind.
in my wellness
Yes.
process when I mentor, I always start people with there. Well, first of all, Michelle, may I speak about your background first of all? When we're talking about wellness travel, where you are right now, you're in Cabo San Lucas, correct? You have a beautiful
Yes.
scenery. Are
Yes.
you in a beautiful wellness place? Could you show us?
Yes, I'm at the Montage, and
Okay.
I'm on my balcony, and this is like every morning. I get to look out. I get to witness the sunrises. I
Oh
get up
my
at 6
gosh.
o'clock in the morning,
Oh, thank
and there's the
you for
beach, and it's
showing.
just so beautiful here. So yes, so we talk about meditation and different types, prayer meditation. So that's what I've been doing,
Right.
just
And
waking up and being so grateful.
being thankful. And I want to bring attention to that, Michelle. Okay, so I am going to address what you say, but I want to give
Okay.
honor to you because you're very transparent about your life. You have a son who's ill that you absolutely love. You spent 12 days, a long stint in the
Yes.
hospital, 24/7. And most people, they would just keep on going. But
That
you
yes.
went on this trip, this wellness trip, and that's very, very healthy. And that speaks to part of what I work with people about. There are a lot of times, Michelle, when my clients aren't able to travel because they're in the middle of whatever that grind is, whether it is advocating for a loved one who has a long-term illness, which I know a lot about, or if you're in the middle of building an empire, if you have a huge project with a deadline, you have a lot of people depending on the fact that you follow through. Obviously, you can't take off to Cabo San Lucas like Michelle can, but you can travel within. And there's different ways that I take people through when
Mm.
they're in that journey. And whether that be a guided meditation, whether that be understanding the nature of your mind. Usually, I always start with the 5 steps of transformation, like Michelle spoke about. And that teaches people what those stages of transformation are within themselves as they make these changes. And then we go to understanding the mind, understanding what we know in the Western world of left brain and right brain, then understanding the latest in neuroscience, the core processors of the brain, because it's very important that you need to know how that mind works. And then from there, then we really start the process of teaching you how to help your mind so that your mind can help your body. Instead of your mind telling your body what it needs, you want to teach you teach your mind how to listen to your body and give it what it needs. So when you're traveling, say for instance, you can't travel, but you can listen to music. And we've had many, many studies about this, about visualization. Some music transports people. I call music medicine. So one of the things that I always make sure when I work with my clients, probably for the first 3 or 4 sessions of their mentoring sessions for health and wellness, I make them hand me music playlist to help prime their state of being. And the reason being is because it's one of the quickest ways that I know that helps people transport their energy and conjures up the visualization. From there, then it'll be easier to start to visualize a different place. You know, that find your happy place. Well, sometimes you have to do that because you can't physically travel. Now, that being said, it's really important because some people say, oh, I know I'm going through this, but I have this trip to Kauai, or I have this trip to fill in the blank, which is fantastic. But I always say, okay, let's help you to get to that point. And the reason being is because a lot of times when people think about their own wellness travel, recharge time, whatever they call that, it's all wellness travel to me. What ends up happening, it's a habit. And believe me, folks, I've done this myself. What ends up happening is that they drive themselves into the ground. They check up all lists. They work at all hours of the night. They respond to everything because they say, oh, if I do all this, then when I go on vacation, if I do that wellness travel, then I won't have to think about everything. What ends up happening is people end up getting sick while they're on the airplane, or they don't feel well. And they literally need 1 or 2 days of nothing in order for their bodies to kind of rebalance so that they could even enjoy their trip. Now, the problem being is a lot of times people don't even schedule that. So that's one thing that's really important when we get to that point with clients. I always recommend that they make sure that they schedule at least 1 or 2 days of decompression time before they go off and do the jet skis, they go to hikes, they hang out with friends and stuff. Really spend time to allow your body to settle, to find its equilibrium. Your body needs this. And that in itself will create a true vessel of recharging rather than the stressed out whatever. How many times, Michelle, have you heard people say, I need a vacation from my vacation? Have you heard that?
I was just about to say that I used to be one of those people. I need a vacation for my vacation because I would stay up all night, getting things ready. Then I got there and not giving myself enough time. And then I just felt, tired and exhausted when I got back. So you're so right. Give yourself that needed time to decompress. And, it's all about the vacation used to be, I wanted to do everything, but now it's just really about that well-being, right? Just getting that connection between the body and you said the, body, mind, and the spirit, that connection. And I think that's what we're talking about when we're talking about well-being, right?
I'd like to add one thing, if that's all right, Michelle.
Yes, please.
Well, I'd like to add the importance of the financial aspect. One thing that I found traveling with others and also observing when I would travel by myself or with my wife, what we found is that if you tend to put all of your trips on charge cards, meaning that you haven't paid for it and you haven't budgeted for it, it creates an enormous amount of stress that you can't even enjoy your vacation, your wellness travel. It's impossible for people. And then I noticed that 2 or 3 days before the trip, I noticed that people will all of a sudden get that tension that they wanted to let go of and to hopefully reset, they get the tension again. And the reason being is because they know now that they have to pay off for that trip. So one of the practices that we've been doing for well over a decade is to pay for our trip ahead of time and budget a certain amount of money in order for us to know, okay, I have this much money to spend and do whatever. And that's not even including the expenses that you really need. You need to have money for food and transportation, all that. Include all that. And then have that budgeted money for play. For, this might be interesting. I may want to try this. Maybe I want a massage. Maybe I want to do whatever that is. Because if you have that, then you can travel stress-free. Then when you're finally traveling, you don't have to worry of, oh man, how am I going to pay for this? And then what good was that wellness travel?
That's an excellent tip. Budget for travel. I mean, there's a saying that we want to pay ourselves first, right? So have that travel fund so that when you're get ready to travel, it's really truly about wellness and well-being as opposed to finances. And I'm sure in your practice that financial is probably the number one financial stressor there is among people. Would you agree?
I know it is for myself. Yeah,
Right?
that's certainly, and that's the importance of finding a good mentor. That's the importance of finding enough experts around you. And I'm always trying to educate myself. I can't say that I am the most literate about financial planning. So please, folks, don't take any other advice from me. Do find the experts, and you'll know who they are. Some of them are even your friends. In fact, that whole thing of having the vacation paid for itself, that was a compilation of the decisions that we had as a family, but also seeing how our friends are super recharged. There was a couple we knew, super recharged when they came back from their trips, and they made less money than we did. And we observed, we asked questions. Remember, ask questions and learn from there. So yeah, I just didn't want to take all the credit for myself there.
Well, thank you for sharing. I love how you think asking questions and the answers are within the soul. I love that. Just be curious and ask questions. Well, we have we're hosted by the Los Angeles Tribune. So I want to take a moment and just really share with our viewers, what the Los Angeles Tribune is doing. We're a news station, but we're also here to bring, amazing educational information. And it's about, the community and the well-being. So with that, let's learn a little bit more about the Los Angeles Tribune.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And welcome back. I'm here with Michelle Quevedo. Hey, and we're talking about wellness and travel. And actually, we're just talking about, Michelle has been 20 years coaching and mentoring, Olympians, and I always say stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home parents, and just CEOs, and just the wealth of information from your travels over the years. And you've learned from the best of the best, the masters, and you've brought it all together. And I just want you to share with us like some of the benefits of traveling. I know you just talked about sometimes you may not be able to physically travel. I know for me, some of the things I love to listen to is the ocean and the rain. Those are some of the meditations, and it will bring me there. But tell me the benefits of really, if it's a stay-at-home vacation or just traveling. What are the benefits? Can you share a few benefits as a whole being?
Yes, absolutely. I loved how you brought that up, the staycation, because a lot of people are having staycations, meaning that you're staying home, but you're unplugging from the world. There's a lot of benefits. Oh my goodness. Let's start from your immune system. There's been several studies to support this, and every healthcare practitioner will tell you that when you do take that time, consider it a time of a pause. That's what I'd like to teach people, because it helps to boost your immune system where it's balanced. Now, for those of you who are experiencing an autoimmune disorder, or you're teetering on autoimmune disorder, because a lot of times we have a lot of healthcare practitioners that can now warn you that you're headed that way. Pay attention to that. And that means that you need to unplug. So if you can't travel, if you're in the middle of a big project, or you have a lot of responsibilities, or if you are caring for someone else, it's really, really important to find a time to unplug. So that may look like a half a day, that may be a few days that you have to yourself. And like Michelle Wilson said, find what really calms your state of mind and makes you happy. There's a saying that I always say to people, and that's find a reason. May you always have a reason to smile. And what I really mean by that is to find a reason for you to smile. And if you can do that, then you can also create a space for you that you can recharge as if you did travel, as if you were well. Now, I have worked with company heads and especially developing wellness programs. And it's really important. A lot of companies will offer, vacation time. Now, larger companies are creating wellness time. And in fact, there's a new CEO position, it's fairly new, called your Chief Wellness Officer. It's because they're understanding through their own internal studies, and they've also had to produce them because some of these are publicly traded companies that had to produce to their investors where the money goes. Now, one of those would be Citibank. Citibank had a report, I believe it was about 4 years ago, to their investors. And what they showed is that if they invested for every $1 that they invested into their employees' wellness, they got a $3 ROI, that's return on investment back. That's how important investing in your own wellness is. Companies are catching on, folks. So when you're staying home and you're trying to recharge, if listening to recordings of the ocean brings you peace and happiness and makes you smile inside, do that. If going for a walk does that, if playing with your children or your pets does that, if connecting with people or not connecting with people brings you that joy and that peace, do that, because that's really the state of mind that I feel is something that you need to have as a goal when you're going through your own wellness travel. Now, if you do have the opportunity to get away for a weekend or so, really take stock into what makes you healthy, what makes you happy. A lot of times if people say, especially if you're a workaholic and they hear that you're going to be somewhere for the weekend, they go, hey, let's meet. Well, a lot of times that could be more draining. So make sure you schedule out that time, or maybe tell them, hey, I'm going on a wellness trip, or I'm unplugging for a week. I may not talk to you in social media. I may not talk to you and communicate with you because I'm taking a pause, a wellness thing. But I promise when I get back online, I'll communicate with you. These are some of the aspects that we work together with clients to get them to feeling better. And this is also advice that I give when you train for people in their businesses and also when they're wanting to understand in the corporate level how to keep people healthy. So the immune system's important. Let's talk about the body. A lot of times, if you're getting a lot of body aches, it could mean that your body is fighting something, maybe a virus, maybe there's some allergies, whatever it is, it could be a toxic buildup. Unless it's, of course, and usually so, then obviously check with your physicians and your healthcare practitioners about that. But if you just don't feel well and if you're feeling cold, that's your body powering down and it could be fighting something. It's okay to be fighting something because that also makes you stronger. But it's also a time to pay attention and give your body that pause. I hope that answered your question, Michelle.
Absolutely. And, since I've actually been here in Cabo, I've been amazed. There's been about 3 or 4 different companies that brought like 50 of their employees and their spouses.
Yes.
And it is truly that investment, that ROI back into your employees, because when they are, having fun and just rejuvenate, they can go back and actually do more. And I was really amazed at how many companies are here in Cabo. They had fireworks and they had the names on the mountain and so forth. So I thought it was just really amazing that there are, big corporations out there that will still, take care of their employees. And I think it's key
Yeah.
as professionals and entrepreneurs that we must do the same. As you said, create that travel budget for you as an entrepreneur. So I
Yes.
just love what you're saying about that. So yeah.
In
So
fact,
is
if
there
I
anything
may
else you'd like?
add,
Yes,
oh,
go ahead. Take it away.
if I may add to your observation of the companies bringing people together, that's so important with companies and entrepreneurs because connection is important. Now, everybody is working remotely. Not everybody, but so many people, and they're working remotely for the first time in their life. And believe it or not, they didn't realize that having that human connection around them meant so much. So wellness travel helps with not only bonding as a company, but creating the health of a company. So this wellness travel understanding is not just your own journey, but it's also creating a healthy environment around you. Don't you want your coworkers to be healthy people so they're not crazy when you're working on projects with them? And that's why it's so important. I'm so glad that you observed that. Now, how that looks like on the personal level is that you want to make sure if you're going on a trip that you surround yourself with people that are not draining or they're not toxic. A lot of times people feel that when they go off to travel to make them feel better, that they have to invite certain family members or friends just because they haven't seen them in a while. But you want to take stock into how that makes you feel. And if you notice that your body immediately feels drained when you're thinking about these people, even just calling them or contacting them, that's a clue that your body is telling you, hey, I don't feel unwell interacting with those people. This doesn't mean that you should stay away from those people, but maybe they may be a little more draining. So when you decide to go on that trip, when you decide to unplug, make sure that you're really protective of your energy and find out what your body says. Tap in, tap in, tap in. Ask your body.
You are so right. I mean, tapping into the energy, because the trip that I'm on actually was 14 amazing women. We're celebrating my friend's 60th birthday. And we're all talking about us as women, how we are givers, yet we can come together with the mindset of gratitude and just being thankful. And it's been an amazing trip. As you said, energy is everything. I think if you're going on a trip with your family members because of a have to, it's a little bit different than going because you want to, right? So I believe you're so right about just protecting your energy when you're on a wellness trip. So
Yes.
Michelle, I just really, as you said, you traveled all over the world, and taking what you've learned from your travels, what is like some of the key points that you share with your clients when you're working with your clients, what you have learned through all your practitioners that you've actually worked with and mastered with?
Well, as we already spoke about, there's that mindset, obviously, making sure that you know exactly why, the reason that you're traveling. And then from there, it's about travel planning. Now, I want people to be well. And so usually what I do is I start with my list of suggestions that they follow. And this is something that I've developed for myself. And one of those things is if you're taking supplements or if you're taking medications, that you do check with your healthcare practitioners and you say, look, this is where I'm going to travel. I'm going to be bringing these things. Do you suggest I bring anything else? Also, too, if you're going to travel to developing countries, which somehow, for some reason, I find myself there often, you want to make sure that you bring with you medicines and things to take care of yourself if you find yourself ill. For example, if you're in a developing country, one of the biggest dangers is the water. Now, you can wash your hands in the water, but you don't want to brush your teeth with the water. So making sure that you always have a bottle of water just for brushing your teeth can be the difference between you having a healthy time or you coming back with a parasite. Another thing to pay attention to is what are the dangers in that area? Is there malaria? What are those challenges? You don't have to deter your travel, but it will help. There's enough reports out there. There's enough books out there. One of the books that I like to follow is Lonely Planet if you're going to travel to developing countries. And they give you some tips as to perhaps certain inoculations that you want. A lot of times people say, well, I have a strong immune system. Well, you don't have a strong immune system against malaria, or or certain things that you just can't hide. Michelle, it's funny that you say that. In my travels, I've seen people do things that just like make me worry. I've seen a lot of people, obviously in the Western world, not understanding, thinking that there's the same element of cleanliness, there's the same element of dangers that they know back at home, and that's not true. I was in the Himalayas and an area. And let me preface this, your feet have the largest pores in your body. Okay. Things can come in and out of. This young lady was traveling and she was walking the streets barefoot and it had been raining. Now, I had already had friends that I knew of who were big mountaineers and alpiners who were in Katmandu and had rained, and they decided to walk around barefoot. They came back and they actually ended up in ICU, almost in comas, because of the fact that their feet had come in contact with rat urine, and the theory was
Oh,
is that the rain that washed off and some rat urine and it got into their pores. So there's certain precautions you have to take. And my rule of thumb is wear shoes on that respect. Another thing that I've learned is to really connect with the people, understand where they are, understand the element of healthcare that they're dealing with. And if you can, I'm all about supporting the communities. If you're in a developing country where even getting Tylenol or aspirin is hard, if you're bringing a whole arsenal of antibiotics and whatever you do and supplements and such, like I travel with, and you happen not to have used them, what I like to do is I like to find out where are the volunteer clinics, not the paid clinics, but the volunteer clinics. And I get in contact. And it's amazing how word travels fast when you say, hey, I want to bring some supplies that could help people for their health and wellness. Immediately, you almost get a message within an hour. This is even if it's hard to even get a phone call out. And believe it or not, I've been in those places. They're so appreciative of that. And so bring those with you. A lot of times I will bring extra things because I know that there are volunteer clinics out there that need certain things. Something as simple as like a spray on Band-Aid because they don't have enough clean
wow.
water to clean out wounds. Things that we take for granted in our developed countries can really make a difference. And this is how your wellness travel can actually make other people well. It's not just about us and what we're taking. I truly believe it's about giving. And by giving, it literally recharges you. So when you come back, you've done a job well done, believe it or not, and you feel a lot better and recharged.
Wow, I love that tip, about just finding the clinics. And
Yeah.
so, and when you bring on the supplies, it's not difficult to bring those supplies through travel and so forth. I just want to make that clear because aspirins, but how powerful it can be for another country for
Oh, they're so
has,
appreciative. Yes.
yeah,
There
that's
are also
amazing. So,
physicians that will reach out to you and say, for me, I always travel with different antibiotics that my doctors will tell me because they'll say, hey, there's a good chance of this happening or that happening. And they'll reach out to me and they'll say, Michelle, do you have any antibiotics that you haven't used? And always I say, of course I do. And so I always donate to them because it has saved lives. I have physician friends who travel and they have literally saved lives with antibiotics that they've traveled with. I know that a lot of people say, hey, but you got to stay healthy and these people have organic food. But we're talking about there's certain illnesses that we can easily go to a hospital or a doctor to fix, but it could actually kill somebody in another country. So in my opinion, it's our responsibility if we're going for travel, because I feel all travel should be for wellness. This is my
yeah.
theory. Have the responsibility of connecting with the healthcare providers, because obviously if you're giving medicines can also be poisons if they're not administered correctly. So I want to preface this. If you're going to follow my example with this, connect with the actual healthcare practitioners. And that's what I do. And then you can pass that on to them. But like I said before, a lot of the paid clinics, usually they have access for that. So if you can, try to find out the volunteer clinics, because I truly believe that it's the best way to help people all be well. You don't want to be that traveler that it's what's in it for me. I feel that you have the best experiences and it really enhances your life if you can help others even in your travels.
Yeah, helping others in their well-being is definitely a benefit, and I love what you said, going back to you check before you leave the country, you actually connect with your doctor or your practitioner just to see, hey, is there anything else I need to take? Because you're right, we are going into another country. The medical care might be a little bit different there. And so I really love that tip that you shared. And I know on this trip, we've had a couple of the young ladies ate something that didn't agree with them and so forth. So, I mean, those
Common.
things do happen. Yeah. So it's really common. As you said, our bodies are not used to other areas. So just being aware of that, so in your
Yeah.
wellness and so forth. So I
A
love
lot
that
of
tip.
times, Michelle, people will don't realize that we require different enzymes to break down food. For example, the
Mm.
Human Genome Project, the first test that they did against when they sequenced out the whole genome of all different races, is that they found that the only people who could eat seaweed and absorb the nutrients from that naturally were Japanese-born Japanese people, not even Japanese Americans. And the reason being is because they're somewhere in from their birth, there's certain enzymes that are introduced in their microbiota of their body. And that goes with everyone. So a potato here in the United States is a different potato that you eat in, say, Peru. And a cauliflower is in the United States is a different type of cauliflower in, say, India. And so it requires a different set of enzymes. So a lot of times that intestinal distress can also, and check with your physician on this to make sure that that they're clear on it. By all means, don't take medical advice from me. But from what I've learned from my own professionals and through myself is that you need to sometimes bring some digestive enzymes if you have digestive issues, because sometimes people have intestinal distress, and it could be that they just couldn't break down in their intestines the cauliflower from India, whereas they eat cauliflower all the time here. And this is also why it's important to make sure, especially if you're staying for an extended amount of time somewhere, that you are aware of where the medical resources are and such, and what certain things look like. What does dysentery look like? Well, for example, we all know what dysentery looks like for an adult human, but did you know it's different for children? If you're traveling with your children, a lot of times, even doctors in developing countries will think that your baby is teething. Well, a lot of pediatricians will tell you, hey, if they say that the baby is teething, it could be that the baby somehow came in contact with some bad water. So check for dysentery. And it could be a matter of life and death in that respect.
Yes. And our bodies how much percentage is our body made of water? I mean, it's like
Technically 70%, yes.
70% of, yeah.
Which is a lot.
Yes, but definitely. And going back to, I was just thinking, I wanted some hot tea, and I was like, oh, let me just get some hot water out of the faucet. And I thought, no, that's not a good idea, Michelle, because you don't know it's going to be wrong.
Or you're really careful with the drink, and then you get the ice from the local water.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
right. It's just those little things that we don't think about. So I really appreciate you just all those tips that you're sharing with us, because we do take it for granted. And then when we're traveling into another country, that our behaviors are kind of like the same in the country that we're from. And there's definitely difference as far, I mean, even the food tastes amazingly different, when you go to other countries, but you still got to be careful. And I love what you're talking about. Yeah, a lot of times better. Very fresh. And, I love the fruit here. It's just amazing. But as you said, the enzymes, since that's a great tip. So would you recommend that even if you're not traveling, to take enzymes on a regular basis? I know you're not a doctor, but would you suggest that? Because that sounds like, especially now that we do have a lot of gastrointestinal issues. So is that something as we get older that we should start taking enzymes?
Well, yes, and thank you for speaking to the fact that, no, I'm not a medical professional, so obviously check with your healthcare practitioner. I did get some education in the microbiota. So what that is that's that whole microcosm within our intestinal area. And what we've learned is that it also controls our mood, and there's a whole balance. Think of an aquarium. If anybody has had fish, and if you don't have the pH balance in the water, then it can kill the fish, or they get different sores and such. And so you have to introduce certain bacteria into the water, that's good bacteria, in order to create that balance. And that's what we need to do. And that's why people talk about enzymes. There are many experts there, but there's also different schools of thought. A allopathic dietitian may say, hey, you can actually develop those enzymes by creating a variety of different types of food that you have. And then you have another school of thought in your allopathic of, yes, there is a variety, but unfortunately people don't eat that variety. And so sometimes supplementation is there. So my best suggestion, or what I do, is that I stay on top of the research, and then I meet with qualified professionals, and I say, okay, let's sit down. These are my issues, or if you have no issues, and I want to have a balanced intestinal state, especially if I'm going to go to travel, because I don't want to have any kind of intestinal distress during that time. And usually a strategy will be quick. For me, I always make sure that I take a certain type of probiotics with me, just because I know it helps me feel better and it creates balance. And a good rule of thumb is that there may be something going on with your body if you're traveling, is if you see a lot of swelling or intestinal distension, you may want to talk to somebody. If you're at a resort, talk to the resort physician. If you're on a boat, do the same thing. Pay attention to that. Another thing too is to be careful. Say, for instance, you did get Montezuma's revenge, and if you had that the stomach cramping and the diarrhea. Sorry to talk about that, folks, but it happens. And so when that happens, what people don't realize is that it creates an inflammation around their whole that mid-low section, including their low back. And so be very careful, even if you feel better, that maybe you don't want anything that puts a lot of stress in your low back because it's weakened at that time. I can't tell you how many people would come in my office who ended up after having a stomach flu or some type of dysentery, and they came back saying, my back is a wreck. I don't know what happened. And it's usually because of that stomach distension from that whole area. So staying on top of enzymes, it definitely is a trend, but I highly suggest that you work with a qualified physician or healthcare practitioner who understands more about that, and then strategize. Health and wellness is about collaboration because you are involved. So don't take things where you read it or whatever, and if it doesn't work for you, you got to give that feedback. So that's where that relationship with a good practitioner is going to help you out.
Wow, I just love our conversation, and we're going to come to an end, but I got to ask you the big question.
Oh, the big question. Yes.
Yeah, the big question. We all have that. Even though you are the host on Wednesday, we're still going to ask. So the big question is, how do we make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without illogical damage or disadvantage to anyone? And that's from Buckminster Fuller. So how would you answer that question, Michelle?
The first part of my answer would be about mindset, and that is, do not believe in scarcity. Have an abundance mindset. If you believe that there's enough for everyone, amazing things happen. Collaborations happen. Communication gets better. Solutions are found. So having that mindset is not a fairy tale, folks, because there's a lot of things that we just don't think about that there is an abundance for. There's an abundance of food that can feed everyone to their satisfaction. They don't have to eat just gruel 24/7. But we have a distribution issue, and that's why the food doesn't always go to the people that need it. So understanding that there's abundance for everything, there's an abundance of health, there's abundance of wealth, there's abundance of access to knowledge, there's access to everything, will help you to find solutions and to make the world better for people and the planet and all sentient beings. And that is how I feel that we can help us propel forward.
Wow. And I love this by Jasmine. Scarcity is an illusion. So,
I love that, Jasmine.
That's amazing. So, and it starts with your mind, having that abundance mindset. It starts with the mind, and through abundance, it's, what I've actually learned on this trip, abundance is more than just money and wealth. It's friendships, right? Relationships. The environment. I mean, there's abundance everywhere. So it really does begin with the mind. So I love that answer. It's not about scarcity, it's about abundance. And as we learned from Dame Doria, it's really, if you do have a scarcity mindset, then goes to sufficiency, then to abundance. It's that progression that we've learned over the years. So wow, we are about to end our broadcast today, but is there anything else you'd like to share with us? One of the things I just wanted to kind of go back to, you talked about the body is our largest organ. And so thank you for that sharing. Just walking barefoot is really key in appointment, how we can get disease and illness.
Oh, right. The pores in our feet are the largest.
Pores in our feet. Yeah, the pores in our feet are the largest. I just want to say thank you for that. I wanted to circle back to that because I thought that was a really key distinction, because I love walking barefoot at home all the time. So now
even in showers, right. Well, I have flip-flops specifically for showers in developing countries or in countries, even in Mexico, because the water, sometimes isn't always that great. In some places,
Right.
even resorts, it's getting better. But if you want to make sure that your wellness travel, you stay well throughout, you may want to have certain flip flops just for your own shower and such, depending on where you are. I know I keep on giving a lot of tips, but there's so many things that you do that are so simple and that they can
Yeah.
ensure how you are in your
Well, it's
travel.
powerful. Like you
Yes.
said, it's a wellness trip, and you want to come back home well, right? So you don't
Yeah.
want
And,
to, go on a
meditate.
wellness trip.
Right. And
Go
may
ahead.
I add, there's different forms of meditation. Meditation isn't always sitting. And by the way, meditation is not emptying your mind. It's focusing on something, a gentle focus at times. And so meditation could be through walking. It could be through enjoying that beautiful ocean that Michelle is in front of her room. But meditation is something that can happen easier when you're in travel. And it's something that I highly recommend if you're having a hard time dropping into, try it during your travel. It's probably one of the best things that are going to keep you well.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me on this live broadcast from Cabo. I so
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you,
me.
all the valuable information you shared with us, just, being healthy. And more importantly, it's the well-being, because the well-being leads to good health. Am I
Michelle, may
correct?
I add? Yes. And
Yes.
because, we at Ignite Your Essence will be focusing a lot more on wellness travel. And as we have our first correspondent here, Michelle, out there. And so if you'd like to connect and you'd like to talk about wellness travel, what's coming up and what we're going to be doing in the future, do reach out to me on my Instagram. You'll see on the ticker below. And put the cap words wellness travel, and we'll start a conversation and we'll get that connection going, because I want you to be happy and healthy and well. And how we do this is by sharing our technology. So tap in with that.
Thank you so much. And yes, we are all about being educated, transforming our lives, and it's all about the experience. So we're looking forward to traveling together in the
Yes.
future, right? Yes, we're going to travel together and have some wellness trips. And, it's all about the mind, body, and spirit, and the oneness and the collectiveness, as you said earlier, about being, living an abundant life. It's really collectively in the collaboration. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And want to remind you that Michelle will be back here next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then I'll be here next Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So with that, thank you for joining us on our wellness travel today. Have a great day.